Welcome to Fantasy Week here on Flurn. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make a kick-ass hairstyle in Photoshop. Hey guys, welcome to Flurn. My name is Aaron Nace. You can find us on Twitter at Flurn. We're doing a new thing here at Flurn, and it's called Themed Week. This is our first themed week, and this is going to be Fantasy Character Week. We've done a ton of cool photo shoots, and we're going to be releasing behind the scenes tutorials. We're going to be releasing pro tutorials. We're going to be releasing Photoshop tutorials. We're going to do all this stuff about creating fantasy characters. And today we're going to give you like a special little glimpse into one of those characters, and I'm going to show you guys how to super stylize hair to make it awesome in Photoshop. All right, let's get into it. It's really, really cool. So this is one of our characters. We actually photographed this here in the studio, created the background and everything like that. And this is the finished character that you can see here. We're calling this guy either Super Ginger or a normal name like Conrad. I haven't decided just yet. But we've got really, really cool hair here. And this can be done with this type of like fantasy type of look where it's like super exaggerated, or you can just do this with a regular image and just use it to kind of manipulate hair and make it look a little more stylized and cool. So what I did is I brought back the original top of his head. So this is straight out of the camera and this is the after. So our goal, we're going to be basically turning this into something quite a bit more stylized, and that's what we're going to show you guys how to do right now. So just pretend that I hadn't already done that. Okay. First thing we're going to do, let's create a stamp visible layer because we are going to be using the liquify tool. And the liquify tool you can't really do on a blank layer, so you need a stamp visible layers first. So we're going to hit Shift Option Command E. There we go. And that's going to make a stamp visible layer. Now, we're going to be using the liquify tool to like figure out what we want to do with the hair. But the liquify tool uses a lot of processor power. So generally, if you know you're just going to be editing a small area of the photo, just make that area into selection, and that'll make your computer have to work a lot less. Things will go a lot faster, just a lot better in the long run. So we did make a stamp visible layer. I'm going to hit M for the marquee tool, and then we're going to select it right around his head. There we go. And I'm going to hit Shift Command X, which is the keyboard shortcut for the liquify. All right, let's go ahead and full screen that out. So here we can see this is our liquify, and it's just basically what we had selected. So I don't have to work with the entire image. It's going to work a lot faster. All right, so here are my tips with using the liquify tool. Generally use a brush size that's a little bit bigger than you would think you would need. Things can get a little bit like clumpy if you use a small brush. Like your lines will look like this because you're like pushing in a little bit, pushing in a little bit, pushing in a little bit, instead of like a big, like a nice even area. I don't know, that doesn't make any sense. Just use a larger brush than you'd think you would need. And then your density and pressure, I would keep these both under 50%. So what we're going to do is use this forward warp tool, and I'm just going to start pushing and pulling his hair and getting it into a shape that we actually like. And you can do this with just about any hairstyle. You can do this with anything. All right, so let's go ahead and make our brush a little bit bigger, and I'm going to start pulling it up because I want his head to be, I want it to be like pretty big. All right, let's pull our pressure down a little bit, and that's going to just affect it a little bit less every time we push it and pull. All right, now we'll use a smaller brush. A quick tip for you guys: if you're on a if you're on a Mac, you can hold down Control and Option, and then click and drag from the left to the right. That's going to change your brush size. If you're on a PC, it's going to be Alt and Control, and then right click, and that'll do it. All right, so here we're going to pull this in from the side. There we go. Kind of like make his face look even longer. And this is part of like a caricature here, so this might not be exactly what you were going to do with the hair on your subject, but it's a fun thing for me to do here. All right, and then we're basically pushing and pulling, and let's see, I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller. We'll pull this area up. There we go. Make our brush a little bit smaller to kind of like bring this in here. This is also a really good technique to use if you guys have like flyaway hairs that are just kind of like outside the boundary. You can actually just grab your liquify tool and like push those in towards the center, and they'll still, it'll still look like natural hair or whatever. See, I'm doing it right here. It'll still look like natural hair, but it'll just not be as far away from your subject's head. And usually that's what you want. All right, there we go, and kind of create like a little divot there. Now, the one thing to keep in mind, guys, is when you are using the liquify tool like I'm doing here, it will kind of destroy your pixels a little bit. This is not like a completely non-destructive tool because it really is. It's just pushing and pulling pixels. That's all it is. So I would recommend starting off, with the highest quality image you can. And there we go. Something like, if you are shooting it with a higher megapixel camera, that's definitely going to be a good thing. And, it's totally up to you, like how far you want to push these things. If you really want to just go crazy with them, you'll totally have that option. Just keep in mind, like the farther you push things, the more they're going to not look quite as natural. All right, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a little bit. When we zoom in, we actually look at the pixels, they're going to look a little messed up. But there are some things you can do to kind of get those back. Usually if I have messed up my pixels, like a little bit too much, I'll go in with like just a paintbrush tool, and then I'll kind of like redraw in some hair and things like that. Not to say that you are going to do that, but that's what I would do. All right, there we go. This is just a lot of fun for me. I'm sure it would be fun for you. It's almost like I can't stop. All right, there we go. That's looking really, really good. So this is just kind of cool because you know, I'm sure even if you guys are working with great hairstylists and stuff like this, like it's nice to be able to give them a break and things like that. And if something doesn't come out exactly as you want, you know, pop it in, and here with a little bit of time in Photoshop and the Liquify tool, you can get something great. We work with amazing hairstylists, but you know, even stuff like this is like, it's kind of very, very hard to do. Okay, so let's hit OK. There we go, and then we can just see the before and the after. Just gives it more like a cartoon type effect, which I really like. Okay, let's go ahead and deselect by hitting Command D. Now we're going to do some coloring as well, because I kind of want to make it that like the ginger color. So what we're going to do is use curves adjustment layers for that. I'm going to grab an adjustment layer. Let's go down here to curves. There we go. And we want this to kind of like have that reddish look in it, like the red hair or whatever. So I'm going to go to my red channel. We're going to bring this up a little bit, and then we're going to go to the blue channel and pull this down a little bit. Okay, we're going to hit Command I on this, and then basically that's Command I on the layer mask. I'm going to paint with white right here on the layer. There we go, to kind of like bring in this color for the hair. And a lot of the time this would be way too much color. In this particular case, I don't feel it's like too much, just because it's kind of like part of what we're trying to do with these images, was make them look like a little bit cartoonish and a little bit out there. But if you feel like you wanted a little bit more of a natural look, I would just kind of take this, get it the right color, and then you can just like lower your opacity of the layer, and then it's going to give you the same effect. It's just going to be a little bit less obvious, or it's going to be less opaque rather. There we go. Very cool. Now let's just zoom in here, and I can show you guys kind of what I was talking about. You can kind of tell that these pixels have been like warped and stretched and stuff like that. It's not a huge deal, especially if you're like, if you're not going to be this far zoomed in, I really wouldn't worry about it too much, but just keep in mind, that is one of the downsides of using the Liquify tool. One of the upsides is you get to do something amazing like that. All right, we're going to do a couple more things to this hair to like really kind of polish it off, and then we're going to be done. Let's grab another curves adjustment layer. There we go, and we're just going to do a little bit of dodging and burning here with curves. So I'm going to bring up our highlights a little bit, hit Command I on the layer mask. There we go, and we're just going to kind of pick some areas that I want to be highlighted, like here. There we go, so you can kind of see what's going on there. All right, and now we're going to make another curves adjustment layer. And there are a lot of ways to do dodging and burning in Photoshop, guys. Don't feel like this is the only one. You could use a soft light layer, you could use whatever you want. I'm just kind of in the mood to use curves right now. There we go. Okay, so you can see Liquify is going to get you part of the way, but using a curves adjustment layer like that is going to help you like kind of redefine the shape of the hair as well. So it's a multifaceted approach into hairstyling in Photoshop. All right, that looks really good. And then the last thing we're going to do to finish it off, oftentimes when you color hair, especially if you're coloring in Photoshop, it tends to look a little bit fake because like the highlights and everything like that, they all turn to like the same color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a different color in like the highest of the highlights, and that's just going to look like reflected light instead of like absorbed light, and it should just look a little more natural. Hard to kind of explain, but I'm just going to show you, and then we're going to know what we're talking about. Okay, we're going to create a new layer, and then I'm going to just choose a color that's already here in the skin. It's like very light skin color. And I'm going to paint it right over top of our highlights here on the image. Okay, we could even go a little bit lighter, but don't worry about that now. So it's painted over top. We're going to double click on this. There we go. and I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and say where the underlying layer is darker. I don't want this to be visible, just where the underlying layer is lighter. All right, and somewhere right around there, we're going to hit OK. So this is a subtle effect here. You can just kind of see zooming in. There we go. It just gives the hair like a little bit more of that like nicer highlight level in there. And it just makes it look like, I don't know, it makes it look like a little bit more natural. It's hard to describe, but that extra highlight in there is something that wouldn't happen on the inside of the hair. It would happen on the outside of the hair. So when editing the color, that's like, it just makes it more dimensional. You can already see what it does. I'm not gonna try to explain it because I'm already doing a horrible job of that. Let's go ahead and shift click all those and hit Command G, and we can see there's the before and the after with our hair. Now I'm going to do something really quick here. I'm actually going to grab the pen tool. So I'm going to hit P for the pen tool. You guys can see using the pen tool really doesn't have to take a long time. We're just going to kind of come up over here. There we go. And because this is like a stylized character or whatever, it's not a big deal to like go in here and kind of cut him out using the pen tool. All right, so using the pen tool, holding Alt or Option to kind of like bring that curve in there. There we go. And the pen tool is really nice. It's really just a way you can click and drag to create just about any curve that you want. All right, come right down around there. Very cool. And I'm going to hold Alt or Option to grab this little point, come right over there, and then just click and drag right over here. Hold the Control or the Command key to bring that in. Okay, and then we're just going to go basically right around his head, and then we're going to make a really nice selection. And normally I would be cutting out the person's head with this selection, but because we're just working on a background that already exists here, like this one that we've already created, we're going to just turn this into a selection, and I'm going to fill this with this background color. So now that we've created our pen selection, it didn't take too long. We're going to right click and go to Make Selection. There we are. Hit OK. And now we're going to hit my B for the brush tool. Hold Alt or Option to sample your color here. And then I'm going to hold Alt or Option and hit Delete. And that's going to fill with my foreground color. So just a really quick way to like completely cut out the hair and make it nice and, make it blend in with everything else. And that's it, guys. So we went really quickly from this. No, not that. There we go. Let me just group all those together so we can see what we're doing. All right. This hair, which is just like a totally normal haircut, it doesn't look bad or anything, but it's not like really cool and stylized, to this in the final, which totally looks cool and it's totally cartoony. If you guys wanted a little bit more of a natural edge on the edge, a natural edge where you cut it out, just feather that selection a little bit where I did the pen tool. I'm not going to for this because I kind of like that like sharp edge look for this, but if you did want a little bit more natural, just feather that selection before you fill with the background color or before you cut someone out, and it's going to be perfect. All right, guys. That's it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching Flern. We've got a great pro tutorial coming out this week. It's on creating a fantasy character. It's going to be kind of like this, except a couple hours long and super, super in-depth. They're amazing. We've also got great behind the scenes and more Photoshop episodes coming up. If you guys enjoy watching Flern, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Comment down below. Let us know how we're doing and tell your friends about it. Thanks so much, guys. We'll Flern you later. Bye. Bye.